You are 53. You make more money than you ever have in your life. The mortgage is current. The kids are in a decent school. The vacation got booked. And when somebody asks how things are going, you actually mean it when you say, pretty good. Now picture this. Your retirement account has $87,000 in it, not $870,087. And here is the part that should genuinely scare you. That is not the worst case story. That is the median for American men your age, which means half of the guys sitting in your row at the office, half of the guys in your group chat, half of the guys you compare yourself to at the barbecue are doing worse than that. Read that twice. Let it land. Here is the thing. Nobody tells you about your 50s. The danger isn't being broke. Broke is loud. Broke is obvious. Broke shows up on the credit card statement and forces you to react. The real trap is looking fine, sounding fine, posting fine, while the hole underneath you quietly gets deeper every single month. You don't see it because the surface looks identical to success. Same house, same title, same calendar, same Sunday routine. The math just stopped working in the background, and nobody scheduled a meeting to tell you. So, let me show you exactly what is going on. Because what I'm about to walk you through is not a story about reckless men who blew it at the casino. This is a story about successful men, disciplined men, men who did what they were told, men who hit every milestone the culture handed them and still ended up cornered. The decade that was sold to you as your peak, the one where everything you built was supposed to finally compound into freedom, is actually the most financially dangerous stretch of your entire life. 4 traps. Specifically, 4 traps that don't look like traps, because they look like proof you made it. And before I get into them, I want to drop one image in your head and leave it there, because everything else in this video hangs off it. Picture a golden anchor, not a metaphor, an actual anchor, the kind a real ship drops, cast iron and massive, except this one is plated in gold, so it gleams from the dock, and everyone walking by knows what it took to earn it. Your mortgage is a golden anchor. Your car lease is a golden anchor. Your kid's tuition contract, your club dues, your professional identity, the lifestyle line you can't quietly step back from without your wife noticing. Every one of them is a golden anchor you've already dropped over the side of the boat without thinking of it that way. Anchors are supposed to give you stability, and they do, right up until the tide moves. When the market drops 30%, the year you wanted to retire, when the layoff lands at 58, when the health scare shows up, when the divorce paperwork hits the kitchen table, that beautiful golden anchor doesn't save you. It pins you in place while the water rises around your chest, and then it pulls you straight under, faster than anything cheap and ugly ever could. That is the part most guys never see coming. They think the wait is the win. The wait is the problem. Here is what nobody tells you. The men who actually walk into their 60s with real money and real options are not the men with the most impressive anchors on display. They're the quiet ones who started cutting them loose, one by one, while everyone else was still polishing theirs for the neighbors. Every trap I'm about to break down is a golden anchor you haven't recognized yet. That is the entire reason they work. They feel like adulthood. They feel like responsibility. They feel like the reward. In a few minutes, I'm going to put the actual retirement math on screen. The math most financial advisors genuinely will not show a client face to face, because the gap between what people assume they need and what the numbers actually demand is so wide, it tends to end the conversation in the room. But first, I have to show you trap number 1, because this is where the whole thing starts to quietly tip sideways, somewhere around 46, 47, when a small psychological switch flips and you stop asking what you could still build and start asking what you need to protect. That switch feels mature. It feels grown up. It feels like wisdom finally arriving, pointed at the wrong thing. It is the single most expensive mental shift a man in his 50s can make. So, before we go further, I want one honest answer in the comments. What is the number actually sitting in your retirement account right now? And does it match the life you're showing the world? Drop a real figure or a real range. I'll read them. You think you're protecting your wealth? You're not. You're protecting the costume of wealth. And that costume charges rent every single month, whether you wear it or not. Here is the thing. Nobody tells you about being a man in your 50s. For 25 straight years, you've been saying yes to reasonable things. Just reasonable things. The mortgage you locked in when rates looked like a gift. The second car, because one wasn't enough for 2 careers. The lake house you talked yourself into calling an investment, even though it bleeds cash every month. It sits empty. The private school tuition you signed up for when the kids were in 3rd grade, and now you can't pull them out without blowing up their entire friend group. The country club, the streaming stack, the housekeeper, the lawn guy, insurance premiums on policies you literally forgot you were paying for. And every single one of those decisions cleared the same lazy little test in your head. Can I afford this? That is it. That is the whole filter. Affordability, to most guys, just means the autopay didn't bounce. It is a cash flow question, pretending to be a wealth question. They are not the same question. This is how a household ends up with $3,000 a month in car payments, while building zero in real retirement assets. On a bank statement, those 2 lives look identical. In 20 years, they are opposite universes. Let me show you what this looks like. With a face on it, meet Richard, 51 years old, regional sales director at a mid-size manufacturer, pulls in $190,000 a year, which is more than his dad ever made, more than he himself thought he'd ever see when he was 28 and grinding. On paper, Richard won. Now look at Richard's floor, $4,200 a month. On the mortgage, taxes, and insurance baked in, $750 a month, leasing a BMW 540i. Because, in his words, he spent 2 decades earning the right to drive something he actually likes, a boat he uses, maybe 6 to 8 weekends a year, costing him $600 a month in financing, plus another $100 in winter storage from October through April, a $450 a month country club membership, mainly for the networking, and he genuinely believes it. 2 kids in private high school at $22,000 each per year. Add it up. Before Richard buys a gallon of milk, he is already locked into $12,500 a month in fixed obligations he can't walk away from without setting his life on fire. Now run the other side. After federal and state taxes on $190,000, Richard's take-home lands around $10,600 a month. Read that again. He is spending more than he earns on commitments he made before he ever opens a menu, books a flight, or buys a Christmas gift. He is underwater before discretion even enters the chat. And here is what is wild. Richard is not reckless. Richard is not some idiot with a gambling problem. Richard is the perfectly normal end product of 25 years of individually sensible yeses, never once stacked on top of each other and totaled that $12,500 number. That is Richard's floor. That is what the world charges him just to stand still. That is not a golden handcuff. That is 12 golden anchors welded into a chain. And Richard is still kicking toward the surface, wondering why he can't breathe. Here is the reversal almost everyone misses. You look at Richard and you think, the problem is he doesn't earn enough. Wrong, dead wrong. Richard's income has doubled in 15 years. His wealth has not. His burn rate grew faster than his savings rate for a decade and a half straight. And your 50s are the exact decade where that gap stops hiding. It walks into the room, sits down across from you, and asks what your plan is. Income going up and wealth going up are not the same event. They never were. The American Psychological Association published research in 2024 showing that people earning above $200,000 a year report financial stress at almost the same level as households earning a fraction of that, because the obligations scaled right alongside the paycheck. The number on the W-2 changed. The pressure in the chest didn't. So here is the question I want you to actually sit with tonight. If your paycheck stopped on Friday, how many months could your current life survive before the whole stack starts collapsing? Drop the honest number in the comments. Not the number you wish it was, the real one. You think stress about money is a problem that disappears once your paycheck crosses some magic line. It isn't. The data shows households pulling in $250,000 a year report nearly identical financial stress levels to people earning $75,000. Same anxiety, different zip code, and it is not because the dollars stopped mattering. It is because the ratchet clicked. The lifestyle quietly expanded to swallow every raise, every bonus, every we earned it purchase. And now both households are sprinting on the same treadmill, just paying different prices for the belt. Here is the thing nobody puts on a pay stub. Redirect $800 a month, one modest luxury or one obligation. You could be sidestepped, starting at 40, into a low-cost index fund, averaging 7% a year. By 65, that single redirected stream is worth around $472,000. Not because you invested more, because you stopped buying one anchor. One. That is the math hiding behind your I deserve it moments. Now, let's talk about the trap almost every financial plan walks right past. This is the one that quietly turns a fixable situation into a permanent one. So stay with me. You think the problem is not having enough saved. Actually, the problem is not knowing what happens to whatever you saved when the timing goes sideways. There is a concept in finance called sequence of returns. Risk sounds like something academics argue about over bad conference coffee. In reality, it is one of the most destructive forces a person in their 50s will ever run into, and I'd bet fewer than 1 in 8 people watching this have ever modeled it against their own retirement plan. Here is how it actually plays out. You are 58. You got $450,000 in a 401k. You plan to retire at 63. Market averages a clean 7% a year, and you walk into retirement with roughly $630,000. Predictable. Boring. Fine. Now flip the script. Year 1 of retirement. The market drops 35%. Then it recovers and averages 9% for the next 19 years. On paper, the long-run average still looks healthy, but you're pulling out 4% a year, $25,000. While the portfolio is already gutted by a third, you are selling shares at a 35% discount every single month during the exact window the portfolio needed to stay intact to compound forward. You're locking in losses on repeat. Your money runs dry somewhere around year 14 instead of year 25. Same average return, completely different ending. This isn't a chalkboard exercise. In 2008, retirement accounts lost a median of 38%. People who clocked out in 2007 or 2008 watched roughly half their portfolio evaporate. At the precise moment they became most dependent on it, the market clawed itself back inside 5 years. Their portfolios didn't, because they were drawing down through the whole trough. The sequence ate them alive, quietly, permanently. Now meet Gary. Gary is 54, successful by anyone's measuring stick, and he is going to walk through the rest of this video with us because his story is more common than it should be. Gary has been with a major wealth management firm since he was 42. His advisor runs a standard 80-20th split. Equity to bonds. Quarterly reports show up. Gary glances, nods, approves. He trusts the process. He knows he is not as far along as he wishes, but the brand on the letterhead feels reassuring, comfortable. Here is what the letterhead doesn't show him. Gary has $600,000 under management. His advisory fee is 1.2% a year. In real money, that is $7,200 every single year, written in basis points. So it never feels like an actual withdrawal. Compare that to a comparable broad index fund at Vanguard or Fidelity, charging roughly 3 basis points. 3, not 3%, 0.03%, compounded over 15 years on a $600,000 base. That fee gap doesn't shave Gary's retirement. It amputates an entire chapter of it, and he has no idea because nobody ever shows him the line item in dollars. Quick question before we keep going. If you ran your own statements right now, do you actually know what your fees cost you in real dollars last year, not basis points? Drop the number in the comments. I want to see who has been told the truth and who has been handed a chart. You're staring at a portfolio statement that says 1.2% management fee, and you think that is nothing, that is basically free. Here is the thing. On a portfolio compounding at 7% a year, that 1.2 skim, dragged across 2.5 decades, quietly walks off with around $182,000 of Gary's retirement. $182,000, not in one hit, you'd flinch at, but in tiny quarterly bites, too small to feel. That is not a fee. That is a golden anchor bolted to his return rate, and he has been paying it without ever seeing it. Now, let's talk about what Gary's advisor has never once put on the table. A Roth conversion ladder, done correctly over the next 6 to 8 years. That single move could realistically save Gary somewhere between $60,000 and $90,000 in tax liability. once he actually retires. It is not exotic. It is not a loophole. It is a legitimate, well-documented strategy, and Gary's advisor knows about it cold. So why has it never come up? Because the assets that get converted no longer sit inside the advisor's actively managed bucket, and that quietly shrinks his fee base. Structural incentive. Nothing personal. The system just doesn't reward him for telling Gary the truth. Here is where Gary's story turns into your story, because there are three things that hit men in their 50s at the exact same moment, and I have literally never seen a financial plan that prices all three of them in at once. Individually, each one is survivable, stacked on top of each other. They are the reason I'll figure it out turns into I'm not sure I can ever actually retire. Number 1. Aging parents. The average age at which American men start writing checks to support a parent is 52. 1 in 5 Americans is doing it right now. And we're talking about the baby boomers, a generation that undersaved is living a decade longer than their plan assumed, and whose healthcare costs absolutely explode in their late 70s and 80s. Medicare covers the hospital. Medicare does not cover assisted living. Assisted living in the U.S. right now runs roughly $5,000 to $7,000 a month, depending on the city and the level of care. If your mom or dad has $70,000 saved, which is right around the median for that generation, you've got maybe 10 to 14 months before the bill quietly slides across the table to you every month, indefinitely. Gary's mother needed memory care last year, $6,200 a month. She had $85,000 saved. Gary is now personally covering $3,000 a month on top of everything else he already owes. Another golden anchor nobody put in the spreadsheet. Number 2. Adult children. And I don't mean the cost of raising them, I mean the cost of launching them. A 4-year private university in the U.S. now runs around $62,000 a year, all in tuition, room, board, fees. Do the math. That is roughly $248,000 for one undergraduate degree. If you have 2 kids sitting at 16 and 18 right now, you are staring down close to $400,000 of post-tax spending in the next 6 years. If you haven't been quietly maxing a 529 since the day they were born, that gap gets closed from current income, from home equity, or from your retirement account. Every one of those options carries a real cost. Most parents don't actually calculate until they're already bleeding from it. Number 3, and I'm going to say this plainly, late divorce, gray divorce, meaning divorce after 50, has doubled in the United States since the 90s, and now accounts for more than 1 in 4 splits. And the financial damage at 53 is not even in the same universe as divorce at 34. At 34, you divide what you just barely started building. At 53, you divide the entire structure of your adult life. The retirement account split. The house enters a legal process that quietly eats tens of thousands in fees before anyone signs anything. The pension gets carved up. The timeline you spent 30 years engineering breaks in half overnight. So here is the deeper question I actually want you to sit with. If aging parents, college-age kids, and a fragile marriage all arrived in the same 18-month window, which one would crack your plan first? Drop the number the age, and the answer in the comments. I'm reading them. You think divorce is expensive because of lawyers. It isn't. Lawyers are the cheap part. The expensive part is the math. Nobody runs out loud. And at 54, that math can erase 3 decades of disciplined saving in a single signed page. The documented average net worth loss for men in what is called a gray divorce sits near 77%, not 77% of some abstract number. 77% of everything you actually built: the house, the brokerage, the retirement accounts, the deferred comp, the side stake in the business, all of it walked through a courtroom during the exact period where your judgment is statistically at its worst. Spousal support in many states runs for years, in some indefinitely, so the bleed doesn't end at the settlement. It keeps draining the next decade. Now, picture Gary, 54, currently separated, advisory fees compounding silently against him, sequence of returns risk that nobody bothered to model into his plan, $3,000 a month flowing out to his mother's care, his oldest starting college in 8 months, and a proceeding looming that is about to slice whatever's left straight down the middle. This isn't a dramatic story. This is what happens when 6 normal-looking financial decisions stack on top of each other, and nobody pulls back to do the math on all of them at once. Each piece looked reasonable in isolation. The pile is what kills you. Here is the thing. Financial advisors are genuinely sharp at the individual moves: asset allocation, tax loss harvesting, rebalancing. What they're rarely equipped to do, and rarely incentivized to do, is sit across from you and say, you have 6 concurrent cash demands inbound. Your burn rate is unsustainable. Your fee structure is eating your compounding, and your plan has 0 sequence. Risk protection. That conversation doesn't fit neatly into a quarterly review, and it might lead you to restructure in ways that shrink the assets under their management. I'm not calling advisors malicious. I'm saying the incentive arrows don't always point at you. Understanding that isn't conspiracy thinking. It is systems thinking. Ask who benefits from the advice, and you learn what the advice actually is. Here is a sarcastic line that gets repeated in real client meetings. You're doing great, given the market volatility. Translated honestly, that means your portfolio is down, but everyone else's is too. So your feelings are validated, and please leave your assets where they are. One of the most expensive sentences in personal finance. 8 words, hundreds of thousands in opportunity cost. Now, let's talk about the 4th trap, because this one is the one nobody wants to look at in the mirror. By 50, most men have a fully formed professional identity. You're known as something: the managing director, the founding partner, the guy who scaled the division from 12 people to 300, the expert everyone calls when something breaks. That identity is real. It earned real money, and it carries real social weight. Here is what nobody tells you. Social weight is one of the most expensive things a human being will ever pay to maintain. The zip code is a signal. The car in the driveway is a signal. The club, the school, the watch, the vacation you drop into conversation like it is nothing. Every single one is a fee, a recurring, compounding fee paid to keep a signal alive. And unlike a 1.2% advisory charge, there is no disclosure document. For this one, no regulator forces anyone to show you what 20 years of status signaling actually costs in foregone compounding. Consider 2 men same business school, class of 2001. Both went into finance. Both tracked similar income curves through their 40s. By 52, both pulling around $220,000 a year, identical paychecks. Call the first one Paul. Paul maintained what I'd call a prestige footprint: the correct suburb, the correct car, private school tuition, country club dues, the annual international family trip that runs $12,000 to $15,000 minimum before anyone orders a second drink. On the outside, Paul looks like the dictionary definition of successful. On the inside, Paul was quietly running on fumes, and the spreadsheet would have screamed it if anyone bothered to open the spreadsheet. So here's the question I want you to actually answer in the comments. Look at your own life right now. Which signal are you paying for that you secretly know is the most expensive lie in your budget? The car, the zip code, the school, the trip, or something nobody else has named yet? Drop it below. Be honest. The first person who tells the truth usually frees 10 more. You're 52. You pull up your accounts, and on paper everything looks fine. Retirement balance, solid, home equity, comfortable. And then you do the one number that actually matters: the liquid net worth, the cash you could deploy without selling the roof over your head. And suddenly, the picture rearranges itself. That is Paul. He has been quietly tapping a home equity line of credit to bridge the gap between what he earns and how he lives. A gap he never let himself name, because every individual swipe felt defensible. Dinner out, justified. New tires, justified. Kids tutor, justified. Add it up across 20 years, and the math tells a different story. $420,000 in retirement accounts, about $230,000 in home equity. Liquid net worth, the only figure that can actually replace a paycheck, around $115,000. That is it. That is the whole runway. Now meet Marcus. Same age, same decade, same general income bracket. Completely different operating system. He didn't live deprived. He lived deliberate. Used car, paid off. No monthly note bleeding him out. Good school district instead of the trophy school district. One international trip every 2 years, not 3 a year. He maxed the 401k starting at 38. Jumped on the catch-up contribution the day he turned 50, which in 2026 is an extra $7,500 a year, stacked on top of the regular limit, and quietly funneled $2,000 a month into a 3-fund index portfolio at a low-cost brokerage. At 52, his accounts read $1.2 million across retirement and taxable. Mortgage, 60% paid down. Liquid net worth, roughly $950,000. Same income, same decade. One man bought approval, the other bought options. Here is the part that should put a chill on your neck. Paul knows. He always knew. He could see it happening in real time, and he still couldn't stop, because in the moment, each decision was reasonable. That is not weakness. That is how the trap is engineered. The approval tax is invisible until you calculate it, and by the time you do, you've been paying it for 20 years. Now, think about what that quietly takes from you. You lose the ability to walk out of a job that is eating you alive. You lose the option to take a pay cut for work that actually matters. You lose the right to say no to the promotion that demands 60-hour weeks. You lose the chance to retire before your body files the paperwork for you. You lose the window where compound interest still has time to do the heavy lifting. And you don't lose all of it at once. You lose it one golden anchor at a time. Let us run it cold. Two men, both 50, both pulling $180,000 a year. Man A has a monthly burn rate, fixed obligations before he buys a single coffee, of $11,000. Take home on $180,000 lands around $9,800 a month. Do the subtraction. He is running a deficit before discretionary spending even shows up, plugging the gap with credit, with equity draws, or he is technically afloat while building zero net wealth. Man B's burn rate is $6,000. He is banking $3,800 every single month. Roll that forward 15 years at a 7% average annual return. Man A ends up with maybe $140,000 if he manages to save anything at all. Man B ends up around $1.14 million. Same income, same market, same 15 years, 8 times the outcome. The only variable is the burn rate. At 65, Man B applies the 4% withdrawal rule and pulls about $45,000 a year off his portfolio. Stack his Social Security on top. Roughly $31,000 at full retirement age, based on 30-plus years of strong earnings. And he is at $76,000 a year without aggressively touching principal. He can retire. He has choices. Man A, same $31,000 from Social Security, plus whatever scraps he saved, generating maybe $6,000 a year. Total retirement income lands in the high 30s. His lifestyle required $11,000 a month. His retirement income covers about 30% of that. So he keeps working until 68, slashes the life he spent 20 years building, or runs the well dry by his early 70s. This isn't the worst case version. This is the median trajectory for an American who looked successful the whole way down. Now tell me, honestly, when you ran the numbers on yourself just now, are you closer to Paul or closer to Marcus? Drop the answer in the comments and explain what changed your mind. You think your retirement problem is the market. You think it is taxes, inflation, the Fed, the boogeyman of the month. Here is the thing. It is almost never any of that. The signal underneath all the noise is your burn rate, the monthly weight of obligations you've quietly agreed to carry, and everything else is just static on top of it. Take Gary again. I mentioned he was separated. His divorce closed 8 months ago. He walked away from the house, lost roughly half his retirement account, and watched his investable assets collapse from $600,000 to $290,000. He is 55. That gives him 12 years to rebuild a multi-million-dollar gap if he wants a retirement that actually covers the life he has been living. And here is what nobody tells you. He is actually doing it. He moved into a smaller apartment. He pulled his fixed monthly obligations from around $9,500 down to $4,100. He fired his advisory firm and rebuilt the whole portfolio into a 3-fund Vanguard setup at roughly 4 basis points in expenses. He started Roth conversions, moving $40,000 last year out of traditional retirement accounts, while his tax bracket was temporarily compressed during the transition. Will he retire At 62, no. He might not punch out until 68, but he is not going under. He cut the golden anchor. It hurt. He did it anyway. Now, let's talk about what you actually do with this. 3 things, specific. Not the recycled internet stuff. 1. Calculate your personal burn rate this week. Open your bank account. Open your credit card statements and stack up every fixed financial obligation you have. Mortgage or rent, car payments, insurance premiums, tuition, club dues, subscriptions you can't kill with one phone call, minimum debt payments, any ongoing transfer to a family member. Add it up. That number is your floor, the price the world charges you just to stand still. If it crosses 60% of your monthly take-home, you don't have a discipline problem. You have a structural problem, and budgeting doesn't fix structure. Elimination does. One of those anchors has to go, and honestly, you already know which one. 2. Stress test your retirement number against sequence of returns. Risk. Don't model an average. Averages lie. Model what happens if the market drops 30% in year 1 and year 2 of your retirement, then recovers. Run that against your actual withdrawal rate. Most online calculators won't even let you do this. The one I built does. It is linked in the description. If your plan only survives a clean, upward line, you don't have a plan. You have a prayer in a spreadsheet costume. 3. Audit every fee in your financial life this quarter. Advisory fees, fund expense, ratios, insurance product, loads, anything you pay for someone to manage your money. If your total annual investing cost is north of 30 basis points, that is 0.3%. You are overpaying. Run the math. The gap between a 1.2% advisory fee and a 3 basis point index fund compounded 15 years on a $500,000 portfolio is over $160,000. That is not a footnote. That is a retirement income stream, and it leaves quietly, quarterly, in numbers too small to make you flinch. That is exactly why it works on you. That is why you have to go hunting for it. I've run my own business for over a decade. I've got hundreds of thousands in the market. I've sat across the table from accountants and tax attorneys who showed me how money actually moves when nobody is performing for a camera, and the pattern is the same every time. The men who walk into 60 with real options aren't the ones who earn the most. They're the ones who refuse to let their burn rate grow up alongside their paycheck. So here is the deeper question, and I genuinely want your answer in the comments. What is the one fixed obligation in your life right now that you know deep down has to go? And what is the story you've been telling yourself to keep paying it? You think the guys who actually retired comfortably were smarter than you. They weren't. They just did the math earlier. They sat down, looked at their burn rate, named the anchors dragging on their balance sheet, and had the stomach to cut them loose before the water hit their neck. Most men never get there. Most men polish those anchors. They wax them, brag about them, defend them at dinner, right? Up until the moment the tide is at their chin. And here is the thing. It is not because they're stupid. It is because every single anchor looked like a win the day they dropped it. The house that was a stretch, the car that announced the promotion, the lifestyle creep that felt like a reward. Your brain literally cannot file an achievement as a liability. That is the trap in its purest form. Not ignorance, not laziness. It is the collision between how something felt when you built it and what it is quietly doing to your net worth right now. Now, let's talk about the part nobody wants to hear. Lazy investing has built more real wealth in this country than every crypto thesis combined. And by lazy, I mean boring. Index funds, automatic contributions on payday, expense ratios under 0.1%, 30 years of doing absolutely nothing clever. It will not make you sound brilliant. At a dinner party, you don't get to tell the story about the sector you called or the 10-bagger you spotted. It is embarrassingly quiet money, and it works. Here is what nobody tells you. The guys still grinding at 67 in jobs their bodies are too tired to enjoy are usually the exact same guys who looked impressive at 52. The watch, the title, the second property, the ones who walked away early, the ones who don't post about it. Those are the men who cut the anchors, pushed the savings rate up, and let compound interest finish the sentence without interrupting it. So here is the final judgment. The window between today and 62 is shorter than it feels in your head, but it is real, and it is still yours. Stop polishing, start cutting. Pick one anchor this week, name it out loud, and decide whether it is pulling you toward freedom or toward another decade in the chair. That is the whole game. Now, I want to hear it. What is the one anchor you know you should cut, but you've been calling an achievement? Drop it in the comments. Be specific. Let's see who is actually ready to pull it up.